This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, good evening, everybody. This is the Historic Landmarks Preservation Commission monthly meeting. Today is June 4th, 2020. My name is Suzanne Cahill, and I will be the organizer for the virtual meeting this evening. Just before we begin, I'd like to go over a few guidelines so that we navigate the system efficiently and respectfully. We ask that all members of the public and press remain muted and off camera for the length of the meeting. As the organizer, I reserve the right to mute anyone who unmutes themselves. Commission members and staff will control their own mute button. However, good practice would be to mute yourself if you are not speaking to avoid background noise and feedback. If a commissioner or staff wishes to speak, they will raise their hands. The chairperson will call on them before they speak by stating their name clearly for our audio listeners and transcript recording. All of the meetings are being recorded. Both video and written transcriptions will be made available to the public on the city's website at a later date. We did not receive any written public comment for this meeting, so that one we will not be reading anything this evening. All the meeting materials, applications, and supporting documentation, written comments may be found on the city's website by going to www.kingston-ny.gov and on our homepage. You scroll down to the bottom under the meetings where you see Historic Landmarks Preservation Commission listed. Click the link for the agenda and you will find a universal hyperlink for all the information. If at any time during the meeting you have an audio issue, please send a text message to the following number, 845-443-0416. I'll repeat the number again, but please, no phone calls will be answered during the course of the meeting. The number again to text is 845-443-0416. As the organizer for today's meeting, I also reserve the right to lock and pause the meeting to eject anyone who has behaved inappropriately or if should we need to enter into an attorney-client conference. The commission wishes to thank you, and on their behalf, we wish you and your family good health. I will now turn the floor over to Chairman Mark Grumblatt to call the meeting officially to order. Mark?
Thank you, Sue. I hereby open the June 4th meeting of Historic Landmark Preservation Commission for the City of Kingston. First order on the agenda is the approval of minutes from our May meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes?
Mark, this is Sue. If you could, would you just do a roll call for attendance purposes, please?
Right, we'll do so. All right, I'm going to be calling each of you. I'll ask you to unmute and indicate your presence online just by saying here or present. That would be great. All right, so let me start with Hayes Clement.
Present.
Andrea Putz.
Present.
Peter DeMuth.
Present.
And Kevin McElhaney.
McAvoy, present.
McAvoy, what am I doing? Yes, I'm trying to search you out on the screen. It's my search error. Kevin McAvoy, please.
Present.
Thank you. I'll note for the record, we have Suzanne Cahill and staff Julie Edelson Safford present, as well as our attorney, Dan Gartenstein. So with that, I would like to reiterate, has everyone had a chance to review last month's minutes? I am seeing nodding of heads. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as submitted. Hayes, is that
So
a
moved.
motion? Thank you. I need, thank you, Hayes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Peter, for the second. All right, all those in favor. Now I'll be calling this by roll call. So
Yes.
I'll be rotating through each of the present members. So Hayes, aye or nay?
Aye.
Andrea, aye or nay?
Aye.
Peter, aye or nay?
Aye.
Kevin, aye or nay?
Aye.
Aye for me, that makes it unanimous. If it would be so noted, please, Sue. All right.
Okay.
So let's move on to the first item on the agenda, which is 139 Broadway in Historic Rondout District. Applicants are Richard and Rebecca Van Scoik, and this concerns a rock wall along Broadway. Do we have the applicant present?
Richard or Rebecca, are you present?
Is anyone who is present authorized to speak on behalf of the Van Scoiks?
No.
Again, is regarding 139 Broadway in the Rondout District. Is anyone here to speak for the applicant in that matter? Sue, can you tell?
Mark, this is Sue Cahill. What I would do is I would just table for the moment and move on to the others. We can come back a little later if they're here to discuss it. Yeah, I believe that they should be here for this discussion this evening.
Yes, I would like a presentation from this applicant before we reach the decision. So I'll entertain a motion to table. Would anyone like to make that motion? Peter, have I got?
Yes.
All right, a second. Would that be Andrea? Andrea,
Yes.
you're going to need to unmute. Thank you.
Actually,
All right.
Dan Gartenstein, just interrupting for a second.
Sure.
My recommendation would be to not table it, but rather just move up the later items on the agenda, address those, and hopefully they appear. Once you table it, tabled, and it has to be addressed in the next meeting. You can't untable it, table it.
Okay.
If you think that will be a cleaner record, I'm fine with it. All right, Peter, would you be willing to withdraw your motion?
I am willing to withdraw.
All right, thank you. I will accept that withdrawal and we will move on. Next, am I correct, would be 102 Wirt Street?
Yes.
All right, and I believe I heard Tanya's voice earlier. Is she still
Tanya
with
is
us?
on.
Okay. All right. Tanya, do you wish to make a presentation? Tanya Garment. Hello, Tanya. Are you with us?
Tanya?
Hello? Hi, sorry. Okay.
Okay.
So, this is Tanya. I may be having, I think I'm having some internet issues, and I'm trying to get the video to load up. Because it just says waiting for Suzanne Cahill. Are you the organizer? Sign in now. But I think it's an internet. I think it's slow internet. So I'm trying to get the video up, but I don't really have anything. I can walk outside my house and see it outside of my house, but you have photographs of it.
Yes, we
Do you
do.
need a better visual of it?
I'm wondering, you presented this as an either or situation.
Well, that's the finished product, yeah. But I'm realizing it may be something else in terms of paint. So I want to first confirm, is it my correct understanding that I have to go before you to take down the siding at all anyway, right? That's part of the application, or is it just the painting?
Yes, the change to the exterior of the structure is part of our purview, so yes.
Okay. So yeah, I'm taking down the vinyl siding. stupid, and nobody got permission to put it up. And I think that it should be not allowed in Kingston at all. It's toxic and it's terrible stuff. I'm worried about the
Welcome to the
rotting of my
choir.
original. What?
Welcome to the choir on that one.
yeah. So I am able to do that right now. I found somebody who Kim highly recommended, who's going and has a lead paint certification because, as we all know, it's like 80% chance that there's lead paint there if it's before like 1970 something.
You have her name.
So, what? I'm sorry, Mark. What was that? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
I heard you. I was not speaking.
Oh, okay. So working as I speak. I'm just going to start giving you my introduction, if you don't mind, while I try to do visual. I don't know if you even need visual from me because I don't really have something to show you. Just see my face sitting in front of my house or at my bookcase. But so I have vinyl.
I would urge
siding
you to
as
go
shown.
ahead without the visual.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so I've sent a picture of the front of my house as it is now. The light blue vinyl siding that the last owner, when I was closing on the house, he said, the first thing I did was I put up vinyl siding before the historic could stop me. Like he was proud of it. And so anyway, I'm really glad to be able to now take off the vinyl siding because I've been worrying about the condition of the wood underneath, because as you probably all know, that vinyl siding can trap all sorts of damage that you're not seeing going on. The Cultural Resources Information System sheet that's also part of the packet is it talks about the board and batten siding possibly being the only board and batten siding in the district. I think that Mac McKenzie's house that was designed by Vox, I think was that up on West Chestnut? I think that was board and batten. That's not there anymore, and there are a couple uptown. But it's a Carpenter Gothic house on a street that has some other Gothic revival houses. The Lutheran Church on the corner of Wirtz and Rogers is a Gothic revival, and I also included a picture of the house across the street, which is a brick house with jigsaw. I think they're called Carpenter Gothic because it's around that time that they had that new invention of the steam-powered jigsaw. Anyway, across the street has some of that jigsawing. But my house, according to the blue cards that I got, one from the city and one from the county, and the Chris system picture, is a board and batten house with some nice brackets up above that I'm really hoping are still there. And if they're not, I'm going to have them rebuilt and as historically, like identical to the old ones. And I picked that color and put it up there pretty quickly. And the reason that I like that color is because it's sort of it goes with the second to bottom layer of paint. So I did that scraping method where you look at what the old paint looks like. And the bottom one looks kind of white. So I wonder if that's primer. And the next one is sort of that sort of forest green, where it has like a little tinge of blue in it. But I like this one that I picked out because it's sort of mossy. And actually, I don't know if you're familiar with the book. This guy worked for a really short period of time with Vox, Andrew Jackson Downing. He wrote about color, but not in his Victorian Cottage Residences book, but the other one, the Country Houses, I think it was called. And he says definitely don't do it white with green shutters. White people think looks new, but it doesn't stay looking good, and it's too glaring. And he does talk about like green often not being appropriate because it blends in with the trees, I think, if I remember correctly. That's what he said. But here we are on Wirtz Street, which is a townhouse street, and I'm really mostly thinking about context. So what's going to go well with the other houses? What's going to look appropriate for a city street? What's going to go well? I'm next door to On my side of the street, on my block, there are 4 structures. The Lutheran church is at Rogers. Then it's their matching rector house. I don't know what it was. The house, now they have their offices. Then it's my house. And then it's a house that I actually haven't had a chance to research, but from what I know anecdotally from the neighbors, or what they know from the history or what they've said, is I think that was like the Cornell descendants lived in that house at 100 Wirt Street. Anyway, it's got a not original siding and green shutters. So it's a white house with green shutters. But I want something that's going to look good between the 2 houses, but also call attention to the house across the street, the other Gothic Revival house. I'd really like to kind of go along with that house as a sort of visual partner as you go up the street. So anyway, I feel like I need to look at the house before I finalize my color decision. I want to take down the siding, and I would like to move pretty quickly though, because then it'll be exposed to the elements. And so, but I want to have a bit of leeway. So I don't know if I can time it with the next HLPC meeting, and I can try to make it so that, although it's always hard with contractors to time things, but yeah, there's not a lot of different areas of the house. You know how some houses like Giovanna Regini, she won that award from Friends of Historic Kingston. Her house is uptown, and it's one of those grand houses that has lots of different sections. It's got the scalloped part on the top, and then it's got the horizontal siding, and then it's got the beading on the porch. Yeah, this is a really simple house. It's just board and batten from top to bottom with some nice brackets. It's got a later porch, which I know for a fact is later, because in a postcard from a postcard of this house and the Lutheran church, this house is in the background, and it's got one of those just little roofs over the front door and a couple of steps. So it's not an original porch, but so yeah.
All right, and if I'm following you correctly, Tanya, what you're looking for tonight is approval on the removal of the vinyl siding, and you'd like to come back to us with a precise color once you see the condition beneath. Am I following you correctly?
Yeah. Hold on a second. Something's at my door. I'm sorry. My mother
Tanya, you're cutting out.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Mark, can you say that again, what you said?
If I'm following you, what you're looking for tonight is our approval on the removing of the present vinyl siding, and that you want to come back to us with a precise color once you see the condition and what you want to do after the vinyl is removed. Am I following you correctly?
I think so. There's a couple of different factors that I could use some assistance with figuring out, if you don't mind, in terms of timing, because I know that this is in a historic district and it's exterior work on my house. I could get some tax credits, but you can only get the tax credits once you get approved by HLPC. So I'm hoping that you can approve the removal of the siding tonight so that I can start the process of that part with the tax credit. And then when you approve the paint, maybe do a separate application to the Department of State? What is it called? Who does the tax credit stuff? The SHPO? Does SHPO do that with a historic? I've never done this before. Historic tax credits. Julie knows what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, I mean, you would probably want to submit both approvals in order to get those tax credits, and you need to follow the rules of the State Department of Taxation and Finance to pull
Yeah.
that off. I'm not familiar with the details, but I would recommend that you attempt both the removal fee and the repainting fee, but you will need our approval on both steps.
both.
And
Yeah. So I want to start, you can't start the work until you have the approval if you're going to get tax credits.
all right.
I don't want to
So-
do that. I don't want to decide on the colors until I see the bare house. I know that the board and batten is there. I've taken discreet peeks around the house. But most, like a significant amount of the paint has just chipped and fallen down. So it's, yeah.
So yeah, you want to see what it's going to take to get a decent paint job beneath, and you won't know for until the siding's removed.
Yeah.
All right. So
And
then
visually too, I'll have a better
I
idea.
would propose that we move ahead with the siding removal tonight, and that you be prepared to come back to us next month or the month after, depending on what happens with your contractors, with a precise color. I will note to you that the two board and battens that I'm familiar with uptown are a yellow color.
Yeah.
Sounds like that's not attractive to you, but as long as you stay in time period appropriate colors, a wide variety is available to you. All right. Does anyone else on the board have questions for Ms. Garman? Anyone else put up a hand? Does everyone feel like you understand where we are? Okay, Julie, yes. Julie, you'd like to
Julie,
address the
I can't
board?
hear you.
Are you speaking, Julie? I'm not hearing you.
Yeah, her mic is on.
Julie, I
No,
don't
she's
think.
not muted. I can see that, but for some reason her audio isn't coming through.
Let's see.
Julie, you are muted right now.
Here.
Can we talk now? Still can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Julie. You are inaudible to us. Are we going, can you write it out on a big piece of paper and hold it up? I don't know what to do. Suzanne, you have any hints on, should she reload and come back in, double checking audio?
Right. Julie, why don't you try signing back in again?
Yeah, I'll be honest, when I do these, I actually have a piece of paper next to me on the desk that I hold up that says, sorry, no audio, we'll retry, because it's happened to me a bunch of times. So everyone bear with us. I expect that we'll have Julie back with us in just a bit. Again, does anyone else have a question for Tanya? All right, I'm going to mute.
Sounds like a fun project.
I hope so.
Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be a big relief to be able to actually see my house and know how it's doing and take proper care of it.
It will make a large difference in your ability to do upkeep without, I mean, whatever is visible will suddenly become another list of things to do, but you'll be at it much more quickly and easily without the vinyl siding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mark, I did get a message from Julie. Tanya, she wants to know if you are going to recreate the brackets.
Yes, I will recreate them if they're not there. Yes, and I got some good recommendations. I hear some very good historic woodworkers in town.
Okay.
I got a couple of recommendations from Marissa actually. So
Okay. And Mark, Julie is having some technical difficulties. She's trying to work them out. So we'll communicate through messaging until she gets that straightened out. Okay.
Great. So we'll rely on you, Suzanne, to let us know if she's got a concern. Hayes?
Nope,
You-
I
would
don't
you-
have a concern. I like it. Do we need a notice of historic preservation and findings to approve just the vinyl siding removal, Mark, or are we okay just to?
No, we're
approve
going
it?
to have to do it with some formality, and I'm going to put, I'm going to adapt the motion I had planned, and I think this will work out fine. Thank you, though. All right.
Something occurs to me. Is it so? It's possible that I would. So the colors that I sent, if you guys have the time and don't mind discussing the colors that I did send, because they are a distinct possibility that I will use those. It was going to be the green for the most of the house, and then that cream for the brackets and the windows. And so if you were to approve that color with the like to have with the added on language like that, if I change the color, which is a possibility, I would come back at next month's meeting to update you and get that new color approved, because then I can start the process more fully with for the tax credits, because it's possible that they would have a part where you can just start the process, and then if you change the color, I just give them your updated.
Are there
approval on
swatches?
it.
Are there swatches included in your application?
Yeah.
Did they make it to the PDF?
Yeah, I saw them on the link that's on the project page.
Thank you. And Sue, you have the original application. Sometimes colors come through oddly.
Yeah,
And
they don't
my
they don't seem to be included in my PDF.
Or do you have access to the website, to the city website? It's up on there.
Can you just, is there a link to that real quick? I looked at it before, but
My internet is now not working, so I can't tell you, but I can tell you that if you go to the HLPC page and it says project under review there, and it's a drop-down menu for June, and then you pick my project, and there's the packet in that.
I think it would be smart, if we're fine with your original choice of colors, to go ahead and approve that in case you still want to, in case you ultimately elect to use that.
Right, thank you. That'll give me, yeah.
Yeah, I just re-downloaded the application and I do not see any swatches.
Yeah,
Julie
I'm
or
not
Sue,
finding them
who have
either.
access to the original submission. My recollection is that these were historic colors and were the right time period. I believe the collection is one we've seen before that it was chosen from. Can either of you confirm that for me?
I'm looking.
I'm looking to see what their names are in case you can just type it into your web.
I believe I have that. I believe it is Benjamin Moore Windsor Green, CW 505, and the trim also in Benjamin Moore Maritime White 963.
Correct.
Okay. In tracking those down, those are from a collection that have been used in the Rondout before. I was comfortable with that.
I don't see it. I mean, I see the names of the paint. I don't see a swatch in the application that appears on the website.
I'll tell you where to find it.
I'm texting Julie right now.
Do you know, if you go to agendas, you go to the agendas and minutes section of the website, and you click on this there. In the body of the agenda, there's a link.
Right.
And then if you press that I believe it's there. So if you press that, it's right after the words new business. And if you click that link, it's really after, on my phone, it just occurred to me I can look on the internet on my phone.
Right.
And it says HLPC project
Tanya?
too. Yeah.
I see in the body where the project description is there, and it does mention the color schemes, the Benjamin Moore colors and the numbers, but it doesn't have a color swatch, like there's no actual paint chip. I think that's what the commission members are looking for.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't bother because it's all virtual, and so Julie actually includes the pictures that there. Go down. Oh no, it was there.
If you're at your laptop, you can just Google the pink color and it'll show you on Google.
Yeah.
Hold on. Benjamin Moore, Windsor Green. Hold on.
So I'll just say it out loud in case anybody has a hard time looking at two things. It's Benjamin Moore, Windsor Green, C as in cat, W as in winter, /505. That's the green.
I like that.
And then the white is kind of more of a cream, and that is sorry.
That would be Maritime White 963. Those of you Googling.
I like them. I'm fine with both of those. I think it's a nice choice.
I would agree. I think it's fine.
Right.
So,
Any other?
Mark, so it's Hayes again. I would support approving this in full, and if Tanya decides she wants to consider a new color, then she would have to come back in July. But otherwise, she'd be good to go with removing the vinyl and painting at these two colors.
All right. I think that's a rational approach here. All right. Then I am going to move that the commissioners present find as fact that the proposed facade restoration at 102 Worth Street. Yes.
Mark, this is Sue. Could you just recognize the seeker, please?
Thank you for that reminder. All right. First, I'll entertain a motion to declare this a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Thank you,
So
Hayes,
moved.
for the motion. Do I have a second? Thank you,
Second.
Andrea, for that second. I will call the roll on the seeker classification. All right, Kevin McAvoy,
Yes. All right.
Peter DeMuth,
Aye.
Hayes Clement,
Aye.
Andrea Putz.
Aye.
I too vote aye. Thank you. All right, moving on to the meat of the matter. I hereby move that the commissioners present find as fact that the proposed facade restoration at 102 Worth Street in the Rondout Historic District by the applicant and owner Tanya Garment, if done according to the plans reviewed at this meeting and according to the procedures as stipulated in section 504-64 of the City of Kingston's Administrative Code, is compatible with the historic character of the building and the district for the following reasons. One, that the proposed work is to take place at the 1.5-story 3-bay house situated on the eastern side of Wirt Street between Rogers and Pierpont Streets, with gable facing west as appearing on the 1870 Beers map of Rondout, Kingston, and Wilbur, having been built sometime before 1870 and after 1858, since it does not appear on the map of Ulster County by J.H. French of 1858. That the proposed work will involve removal of vinyl siding and the restoration and repair of the original board and batten siding beneath, with the siding to be painted in Benjamin Moore Windsor Green CW-505, with trim to be painted in Benjamin Moore Maritime White 963. That this work will cause a material change to the external appearance of the property, that the restoration and painting work will not detract from the character of the historic district or the building, and that any changes or additions to the plans or work specifically described and outlined in the submitted application will be subject to further review by our commission prior to that work being carried out, that this Commission's approval does not obviate the need for a building permit from the City of Kingston's Building Safety Division or any other required approvals from the relevant coordinating agencies. Based on the preceding findings of fact, it is proposed that on the 4th day of June 2020, the Commission grant a preservation notice of action to the above referenced applicant for the work as described herein and in its application to our Commission, such notice to be subject to the conditions contained in our foregoing motion. Do I have a second?
I'm so
Question?
sorry. Can I did, thank you. I want to make, this is Tanya, and I want to make sure that I have a spot at July's meeting. Is it, sorry, Suzanne, do you know if or Julie, I'm sorry that I don't know this offhand. What is the application deadline over for next month? And if so, can it be put in the resolution that I got that? Okay. So can I put in a tentative? Would it be better to put it into the resolution that I would come back in July with any changes, if they'll be, or should
I've
I
already done that,
hold myself a
Tanya.
spot? I
That was
didn't catch that part.
that was part of this, that if you change something, you do have to come back and you'll need to check in with Sue or Julie regarding timing.
And I'm thinking about, checking with Suzanne, but the deadline for July is not up anyway, so my point is moot. Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, I have so moved. Is there a second? I think Hayes wins that particular race. Thank you, Hayes. And is there any more discussion regarding the motion from the members? All right, hearing none, I'll take a roll. Start with Andrea Putz.
Aye.
Hayes Clement.
Aye.
Peter DeMuth.
Aye.
Kevin McAvoy.
Aye.
Thank you, Kevin. I too vote in the affirmative.
Okay.
All right.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you very much, Tanya.
Thank you.
All righty. Next on the agenda would be 89 Broadway, timely signs. Have we got, I think I see you folks.
Yes,
noted.
I am here. Hello.
Hi there, thank you. What would you like to?
Tyson, you just want to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah. Yes, this is Tyson from Timely Signs, Tyson McCasland. I'm acting on behalf of Gary Demaro, Real Estate.
Right. What would you like us to know about the sign?
This is a very simple, flat, double-sided sign. as shown in the drawings, 2 foot by 2 foot. It's hanging on an existing bracket, and it will be, I will make sure that my client puts the city of Kingston as additionally insured, being that it is hanging over the sidewalk.
Thank you. That's often a concern. Any other questions for the applicant?
Looks good.
Yeah.
Thank
Has
you.
everyone had a chance to see the submission? Great. All right. Then I will begin by asking for a motion to declare this a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Thank you, Hayes. Do we have a second? Thank you, Peter.
Kevin,
I'm sorry, Peter beat you to it, Kevin. All those in favor, I will start with you, Kevin.
aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Andrea,
Aye.
I also vote in the affirmative. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. I hereby move that the commissioners present find as fact that the proposed sign for 89 Broadway in the historic Roundout District by applicant Timely Signs and owner Ali Hamoud, if done according to the plans reviewed at this meeting and according to the procedures stipulated in section 405-64 of the City of Kingston's Administrative Code, is compatible with the historic character of the building in the district for the following reasons. That the proposed signage will involve one double-sided 24-inch by 24-inch by 3/4 inch hanging sign, exterior primed and painted white with digitally printed performance and matte over laminate graphics. 2 painted eye hooks epoxied on top, mounted to an existing bracket. That this work will cause a material change to the external appearance of the property, that the signage will not detract from the character of the historic district of the building, that any changes or additions to the plan or signage specifically described and outlined in the submitted application will be subject to further review by our commission prior to that additional work being carried out. That this commission's approval does not obviate the need for a building permit from the City of Kingston's Building Safety Division or any other required approvals from relevant coordinating agencies. That based on the preceding findings of fact, it's proposed that on the 4th day of June 2020, this commission grant a preservation notice of action to the above referenced applicant. The signage is described herein, and in its application to our commission, such notice to be subject to the conditions contained in the foregoing motion. All right. That is my motion. Do I have a second? Thank you, Andrea, for that second.
Was a question if it's on the floor, maybe I missed it. Did that include the language about the city being additionally insured?
No, it did not, but I usually include that under other approvals required. Do you feel we need to split that out separately, Hayes?
I think it should be, yes, Mark. This is
All
Sue.
right. All right, then I will,
Just amend the motion to include that,
yes,
I think.
I was trying to decide whether I was going to accept yours as an amendment to the motion or move to amend myself. I hereby move to amend the motion to include in the, let's see. The 5th paragraph thereof, including comma, then a approval of insurance from the City of Kingston's Public Works Department.
I think you just need to say including naming of the city as additionally insured under any insurance policies.
All right, fine. And is usually that DPW that has to be specifically named or just the city?
The
Does
city of
anyone know that?
Kingston.
All
The
right.
city of,
All right, then my amendment will change again to the 5th paragraph to state that the applicant and/or owner will insure the city of Kingston as required under our administrative code, and leave it at that. So that is my amendment. I need a second to the amendment. Thank you, Hayes, for the second. I'm going to call the roll on the motion as amended. All right, Kevin,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Andrea.
Aye.
I also vote in the affirmative. I believe the motion carries. Thank you kindly, Tyson.
Thank you, everyone.
Let Mr. Hammoud know.
I will. Have a good evening, everyone.
good
You
night,
too as
Tyson.
well.
Night.
Mark, this is Sue. 139 Broadway is now on. They're here.
Oh, good.
Yes, hello. We had, when I logged in, it was asking me if I was Suzanne. We had some issues logging in. Sorry.
Well, welcome. Sorry you had trouble coming in, but to have you, what would you like us to know about your application regarding the stone wall 139 Broadway?
Sure. We would like to do construction. The contractor inspected the wall and said that the entire wall is not able to be preserved, that he would like to remove the entire wall and build a new wall.
Right. So my question is, how much of that wall is yours?
Sure, 41 feet.
All right. And so is he proposing something that will impact your neighbors?
No, so we're going to stop short of ours. So my neighbor's wall already was restored. So which is, I think they impacted ours, is why ours fell. They did construction last year.
Okay,
Next
my
to us.
recollection is something like 2017, but yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you would be able, I mean, it's unclear to me how that transition is possible given what you're proposing. It's tough for me to visualize where the line is and how that, and so they're proposing just somehow sawing right through at the boundary line? Is that what I'm hearing?
So, yes, so at the corners, so the wall will be flush with the sidewalk, except at the corners, they're gonna pin back our wall in like a shape of a V on each corner. So they're gonna tie our new wall into the neighbor's wall.
Sort of behind the neighbor's wall? I'm trying to understand how this is
Behind
gonna
the
look.
neighbor's wall.
So it will be old wall, tuck in, new wall, tuck in, old wall.
Yes, which he tried to draw in his picture.
Okay, that wasn't
So
clear to
on
me in
the
the
edge,
rendering.
so this is like an above wall. This is like an aerial view. He drew you an aerial view. Does that make sense?
Okay, so, all right, so.
So he wrote a wall
gave me a
stepped
facade
in 5
view, he
feet.
gave me a view from above.
Correct.
Okay, so the next thing I have trouble from this view from above is understanding how these blocks line up,
Correct.
because you have a thinner wall below and a thicker wall above, and where are the steps up? How does that work? How is it's tough
Sure.
to envision.
Okay, so in the pictures, there is the stone that is proposed. It's an antique gray. I took it from 2 pictures. And
Right, I
also
saw
the
the color.
finish, what the finished wall would look like would be just straight flush, would be one of the pictures.
All right, so it's when you say straight flush, that's flat along the top, and then it's just going to drop to the old stone wall.
No,
Of the
so
Am I
each
following?
at one of the pictures, each stone is stepped back 1 inch. So on the pictures aren't numbered, so I apologize there.
Okay, we'll try and
So
track
one of the
that down.
pictures shows a finished wall, but I didn't get, this is not the, yes, that picture.
That's picture, it's page 15 of 19 if you're going through the application.
Page 15 and 19, correct.
But each chord is going to be set back 1 inch from the one lower.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. That allows for the interlocking of the bricks. To prevent the pushing of it out again. So this is a new technology with the stones.
Hmm.
All right, and a sense of how deep into the hillside. My understanding is you're planning some pipe work to empty water from the soil out through the wall. Am I following that correctly?
Yes. So they in page 12 in the contractor's drawing, they wrote outlets at the very bottom where the drainage will be.
Mark?
Suzanne, you have a comment?
Yeah, if I can, if you see, it's, this is the drawing that he was referring to. I'm trying to line it up.
Try and get
Okay.
to that.
What's going to happen is the stone will be across the face of the wall, will be the fascia of the wall, such as it is right now in that same location, and it'll be brought back in on both ends, and it'll be tapered in to 5 feet at the back. There's going to be fill and fabric put in behind it, along with a perforated piping to collect any storm drainage. And the
French
perforated
drain, in
pipe
essence.
will allow the water to dissipate behind the wall at a controlled rate, and whatever is remaining will come out at either end of the wall through those 2 outlets. Okay?
Sort of a French drain with 2 weep holes at either end.
Correct. Yes. The other question would be the type of stone. I know at staff level, we had the question is why the current stone is not being, you're not trying to reutilize the current stone.
So he deemed it not usable. Not
For a
reusable.
specific reason, or?
It's old. It's hundreds. It's 100 years old.
Well over, if I'm correct, it's about 150.
Sure.
And
Yes.
yet it was,
So
I mean, it hasn't, is there a huge amount of deterioration within the stone? It's hard to tell from the photographs. Or is it the mortar that is the
I
problem?
looked at it extensively and tried to see if there was repair. And I would like to save, but if we repaired one part, the other part would fall. So then they couldn't insure it. So if they were to just patch it, they could not ensure that the part right next to it wouldn't fall next year, or the part next to that. So it does not look good
It's okay.
in its current picture on page 18.
Right,
This
and
This is Sue
yes.
again, Richard. have you talked to a stone mason at all about the wall? Or just your contractor, the logging and bulldozing?
So I just have the one bid from my current contractor, which I've done lots of work with him in the past. So he's kind of my go-to. I did ask some friends. I did not get any other official bids, but I did ask some friends what they thought.
I guess
learned
I am
all based on the area.
I guess I am a little perplexed by it. Logic would say that if the current stones that were there for 150 years, that those stones could still be used and theoretically be used again for another 150 years.
So they did fall because of the drainage.
What I know about stones, yeah, okay. So is building drainage into, yeah, Andrea, you're probably better at talking about this than me.
So my question is not so much can you just repair this small section of the wall, but can you integrate some of the other stone, which may very well fall because of the deterioration of mortar, and mix in some other stone that may look similar to this instead of wholesale demolishing everything and then patching it with or replacing it with the stone that you have suggested, which I'm struggling a lot with that given the continuity of the rest of the wall and how it comes together. If you all of a sudden see this thing step in and you're seeing the stack stone the way that it is, I get that it's very structurally sound in that regard, but there are methods of being able to shore up a stone wall that has this kind of character and whatnot to it. And there are a lot of other quarries around where you can find similar stones and shapes and colors and whatnot. So that's something I'm struggling with here.
Richard, there was the big retaining wall up at the top of your block behind some houses on West Chestnut, right as Broadway becomes Broadway and McEntee. If you're up in front of St. Mary's at that traffic light, it's right in front of you. That was restored by a couple of owners in the past 2 or 3 years using the existing stone and just remortaring and I think they may have related it slightly differently in places.
Yeah, so my contractor said he wouldn't guarantee that it wouldn't fall again because of drainage issues.
That indicates to me that he's unfamiliar with working with that material. And I can understand that. It's not an everyday matter for an excavator. And I too am struggling with the idea of ripping down something and chopping a wall up that has been continuous for 150 years without at least talking to someone with a slightly different skill set. I think that I'm sorry, I mean, I know this is your go-to guy and you're comfortable with his work, but this may not be his, what's the right phrase here? Comfort zone. And I do believe that you might get slightly different answers. I don't know who did the work next door. I'm not sure who did the work that Hayes is directing you toward, and there may be a necessity to include some sort of French drain and ability on your property to make sure that you don't get a buildup of hydraulic pressure behind the wall. I mean, I understand the physics there, but I would wonder if someone else might give you a slightly different viewpoint on the possibilities here.
Would you like to talk to the contractor?
Would we like to talk to the contractor? I have a funny feeling that the contractor, do you know if he's ever done anything like this restoration work in the past?
So
I know you're comfortable with him, and that's great, but I'm just worried that he may not have the skill set to deal with a historic restoration.
So I do not know his background. I know he does this professionally in the
When
city
you
of
say
Kingston.
lay a wall,
So
yes,
did-
that's one thing, but historic preservation kind of work is sometimes a little different than
Is-
typical.
Is this the same wall type that was installed next? You mentioned that in 2017 the wall was replaced next door.
Yes, correct.
And is this the same contractor that did that?
No.
Could you contact that contractor? Is
So
that
I don't like next door's work. I think they actually knocked my wall down.
okay?
So I didn't file any lawsuits next to the neighbor, but I do believe their construction that happened in the past did or may have affected my wall.
I mean, perhaps I don't know. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, all right. Do you know if they put, I mean, my concern would be if they put in a similar French drain and do you believe that that hydraulic pressure change is the difference that has weakened your section of the wall? Am I following you?
So I do not know, but I do not believe they put in drainage. I believe they restacked the stones and patched their side. But I do not know for sure.
Okay.
Mark, we can check that with the building department to see if they have any plans on file. Off the top of my head, I do not know, but the building department should have the plans in place.
For the neighbor. Yes,
This
Hayes?
is again, I do know that the wall that Hayes referred to, that did have drainage put back in behind it when they rebuilt it.
And I can find out probably tonight who did that, who the contractor was. I'm with Mark. It's a significant piece of the landscape down there, and it's enduring, and this isn't a minor decision.
Excuse me, it's Dan Gartenstein. Just wanted to interject for 1 second. Hayes, which specific wall are you referring to? Because there was work done at the request or the demand of the city with regard to at least 3 or 4 of the properties winding around Broadway on the way down to the Strand. And the significant work was done at least 6 or 7 years ago. So I'm wondering if you're talking about subsequent work that was done. But this has been a long process that the city was actively involved in because of the, structural issues and the boundary on Broadway.
Correct. I think it was the section that was done subsequent to the big part. I think it was more recent. I think it was more like 3 years ago.
Okay, so I believe there were at least 2 or 3 different contractors who did work down there, all of whom are certainly qualified to, provide information or, bids for this kind of work because they're experienced with the issues that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's my point. So I can definitely, I think, because one of the folks is a former neighbor of mine, I definitely can find out at least the name of one of the contractors, the one who did work probably 3 years ago. And Richard, I don't think it was unreasonably expensive either.
Yes, and mine is not. Mine's under 20K as well.
Mark?
Yes,
This is
Suzanne?
Sue. I just got an email or a text from Julie. The wall next door is 137 Broadway, and they do have drainage behind that wall. They did install drainage when they put that in, and it was done in 2017. She's trying to see, she emailed the building department to see if they have engineered plans. Waiting on that. She hasn't heard back yet. Kevin, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, Okay. Just that I agree with what Mark had said and Andrea had said, and I think another contractor or bid, or preferably a stonemason as well, should take a look at this. I mean, or, you know, maybe you could get an engineering opinion as well, like what we had to do over at the Nathaniel Booth a few years ago on Wilbur Avenue. I had to get an engineer in there, and they came up with a completely different assessment of things. So if an engineer is out of your budget, then I would definitely get a stonemason or speak to Hayes and see what, the person who did the job, or one of the jobs in the vicinity, and get a second and third
Sure, my
opinion.
contractor has definitely done jobs before.
I was wondering if we can pour a wall and then face it with the existing stone, or if it needs to be rebuilt.
Facing with the existing zone would be preferable to what I'm seeing on your plans from my personal point of view.
Okay.
But it may be more enduring to get a full rebuild and maybe safer in the long run for you. I'm not stonemason or engineer enough to give you decent advice there, but we have found that that some of the older techniques tend to have greater longevity than poured concrete, just so you know.
Sure. We're just looking at it. I mean, we will eventually hit max for financial budget for this. So I'm just
right, and we don't want to break the budget here, but we do want. Yeah, I would ask, from my point of view, that if you would explore a couple of additional options, because the profile that you're leaving us is going to be visually jarring. I'm having a hard time getting around it. If that is truly the only rational way to go, I'd like to talk about facing so that it blends more completely, but I think that might actually be more expensive. And I would urge
You
you
don't
to
like
get
the
a couple
picture of the new wall?
The problem is
15?
the fact that we have to somehow tack it in to the old wall is going to be visually jarring, even with trying to set the face as flat as you can and set the angle as smoothly as you can on the top. Just, it will be so obviously different, old, new, old.
Sure. As you walk down the street, there are lots of different block colors and block shapes. Across the street is St. Mary's Church that is cinder blocked and then faced with bricks.
Yes, and that is to match their
So
building.
you have like
and that is a
galore.
separate story from this
Directly
wall.
across the street is St. Mary's.
Right, and I would ask you not to mirror that. Please don't.
Correct. Yeah, I don't want to eat bricks, but that is directly across the street from me.
Absolutely. What
Is
we're
there
trying
cinder
to
blocks
do
with bricks?
is preserve as much of the existing historic stonework as we
Absolutely.
can.
Absolutely.
And that may require a different skill set than the one contractor you've spoken to so far. And I would ask if you're willing to consider an alternative plan to come back to us with. I would please do pick Hayes's brain. Please do give a call to the building department or to Sue or Julie after they've spoken with the building department to give you a couple of other possible approaches that would be a little less visually jarring and would preserve as much as possible what we can.
Sure.
We want safety, that's absolutely
18.
clear. Andrea may be our best bet as our architect here to give you details and stuff that you may want to ask in this donation. So
I would highly recommend.
her.
Andrea speaking, sorry. I would highly, highly recommend speaking to a structural engineer on this. There's a bunch of them that are here in town. I can give you a couple of names and numbers if you'd like. They will work in concert with your contractor to make sure that you can, marry all of these different things together. And if it seems like concrete having a sub face of concrete wall makes the most sense with a facing of existing stone, then we can revisit that. But yeah, I would definitely agree. I would consult a structural engineer. This is their bread and butter.
And I will
Thank you for
I'll try to get you at least the name of one of the contractors who did the work behind West Chestnut Street. And I've got both Richard's and Rebecca's emails. I'll try to send that to you tonight.
Okay, but almost all 40 feet of stone is not good. I know only the small part has fallen, but directly next to it will fall soon.
And so we would ask you to talk to folks as quick as you can and get back to us as quick as you can. We agree safety is paramount here. That's hugely important, but hopefully if we do this right, no one has to go through this again for 150 years.
Correct. So do you like the stacked stone? So is this, I'm concerned where the problem lies.
It lies in the visual, the
Of the
idea
color?
of, yeah, I mean, I'm in no position to judge the engineering side of this. Andrea is much more of an expert in that than I. If she's willing to consider concrete with a facing and it doesn't break your budget, I would go that way. I would try. What we are faced with is trying to preserve as much of the look of the rondout as we can. And so that's a real concern for us. And the stacked stone is going to be a big departure in that chunk of Broadway. And if we can avoid it without sacrificing safety and that it won't totally break your budget, we would prefer to see something along those lines. I think I'm sensing a consensus among the members. Are there any other questions or comments that folks would like to ask of the applicant? Andrea?
More of a sort of a jumping off point. The church that you refer to, St. Mary's, I'm familiar with it. I've driven by it a bunch of times. So their construction method for that with the CMU and the brick facing, that's a pretty common form of construction for that. What probably caused their issue was, again, lack of drainage, which this is also a problem with a lot of the older stone walls, and it's the mortar type, and it's not good for ground use. So whatever engineer you wind up consulting with, which I really do hope you do, they can put you in a better place for that. And certainly the quality of drainage that you'll have behind the wall, you'll have it for more than 150 years in that case. So yeah, I would say follow up on that for sure.
Mark?
Dan.
Yeah, it's Dan Gartenstein. There's an issue that is kind of sensitive that I need to speak to the board about. So if we can pause the meeting, I believe everybody received the phone number from Sue with regard to having an attorney-client discussion. And then I would suggest that the applicant be asked to stand by until we have completed that discussion.
All right. Then I believe the process for this is for us to vote to go into executive session for an attorney-client conference. Am I correct on
No,
that,
again,
Sue?
Mark, it's not executive session. Attorney-client privilege is an exemption from the open meetings law. You are adjourning the meeting and then recommencing the meeting after attorney-client session. It's not executive session.
All right, thank you for that clarification, Dan. All right, then I guess we have to do a motion to adjourn temporarily, and I will need such a motion. Thank you, Andrea, for that. I will need a second. Thank you, Peter, for that. All those in favor? I'll call the roll. Hang on, let me call the roll, Hayes. I'll call you first then. Hayes?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Mr. Van Scoik, if you could hang on for us, we will be back in just a bit.
Okay,
And
let's
let
just
us
clarify.
have-
Okay, does everybody have the phone number for the conference call?
Yes.
I do.
Yep, I will have to go get it, but yes, I remember.
Okay, so we will speak in a couple of minutes.
So
Yep.
we're leaving this meeting though.
Okay,
I will-
I'm going to stop the recording and I'm going to mute everybody. If you take yourselves off camera as well, please.
Well, some of us are joining it by phone, so I'm going to have to hang up and come back.
This conference will now be recorded.
Wait a minute.
This conference
we're-
will now be recorded.
We're all back, Mark.
Okay, I am not seeing Peter.
Oh.
He may have been on and disappeared. Sometimes the tiles here do interesting jumps, but I don't see Peter, and I mean, we would have quorum just barely without him, but we seem to have lost him.
I just texted him. Maybe he'll come back.
He looked a
Right.
little too relaxed lounging in his backyard there. He probably just decided he had better things to do.
You don't get, I'm gonna have to break into his backyard for this. No one told me to turn
This
to the
conference
meeting.
will now be recorded.
I hereby declare the meeting reopened.
And Mark, I just wanted to say again that my contractor is now on the line for official questions.
That is, thank you for bringing him in, Mr. Van Scoik. And do any of the board members have questions? I'm sorry, I don't know your name. I just see you as Jay.
JR.
They are.
JR. Well, that's simpler. Thank you.
Okay.
Do any folks here have questions for JR about what we've seen in the application? Andrea.
Hey, JR, this is Andrea speaking.
Yeah.
I just want to see what kind of projects have you worked on? Have you done any historic rehab with existing stone walls? I think that's kind of that's the crux of what this project is about, I
Yeah.
think. And I know our applicant is, he wants to, is proposing having this new stone. And I think in certain other applications, it may be really great, but we want to see if we can hold on to some of the historic fabric. So I would like to hear some of your comments on that.
Okay. So the reason that I'm, using the block and stuff that we're using on this material, the material is unusable. That section of the wall that belongs to Rick and his wife, it was, when it was put in there, I'm just guessing, 1910, 1920. There's
More like
bricks.
1860.
Right. So there's bricks in there. There's pieces of mortar. There's pieces of concrete. It's not all, one type of material. It's like it was put together with waste material. There's nothing historic about it except for the time that it was constructed. Okay. The pieces are all jagged and hard to work with or whatever. You can never piece it back together for what's fallen out. Rick had originally wanted me to just repair it. So my judgment in looking at it and what caused the problem is hydraulic pressure behind the hillside because there's no drainage in there pushing out on the wall. My suggestion is in our field, it's not something I can stand behind and warranty. It doesn't justify just fixing it. That's not something I do. My recommendation is to remove the whole wall and put a new antique block wall up, freestanding, and put the proper drainage and what have you behind it, so this issue doesn't arise again.
JR, is there a way to reuse at least the bluestone block material and relay it in a way that also can incorporate drainage?
There's only a few pieces of bluestone in there. Like I'm saying, there's literally like 5 different kinds of material in that wall. There's nothing uniform about it. I mean, if you want to take a look at it, I mean, we could have took pictures of it and showed it to you. The existing wall that's standing there, you can just see how many different kinds of material is in it. And it's all jagged, irregular material that was just put there and mortared together, in essence, to hold the bank up so it didn't erode. It looks nothing like the walls that are next to it. There's 4 different properties there, and all 4 properties have a different type of material. I could see the historic aspect of it if up and down that street it was all the same material being used, but it's not. It's like each individual ownership is a different type of material.
And on either side, I'm concerned about how to blend the wall you propose to either end.
On each end, we're going to put corner blocks on the end so that it goes a 90-degree angle into the bank. Okay, it's going to look like part of the wall. This Rick's wall will be freestanding by itself. We're going to use a all-purpose saw to cut the wall, okay? And then our wall is going to butt right up to the original wall on each side.
All right, so you're trying to butt up 2 irregular walls to a regular wall, and you're planning to just chop on the line. Am I following you?
Everything about the 2 walls on either side are uniform. They're not like the wall that we're repairing that is, it just looks like it was all waste material that was just fabricated and put in there in no sense of, what it was going to do. Is, there's a piece of concrete, there's a piece of bluestone, there's some red brick from the old Hudson brick factory down on the Hudson River. There's some boulders in there. It's just all erratic material.
Yeah, can you tell what's closest to original of what's there?
No, it's like when they put their wall up, there was a wall on either side, and they didn't match anything that was on either side. It's like they used whatever they had available. There was no sense of putting a design or any type in there.
Right, you're making it sound sort of like a catch-as-catch-can repair. And I'm wondering if, you've got all these different materials. Is there a way to gauge which is closest to original?
The wall on either side of that is made with uniform blocks, all the same size, which is exactly what we're using in the antique block design. It has an antique front on it, and they're going to be 8 to 10 inches high, and they're going to be uniform all the way up to 7 foot, which is going to match the wall on either side quite nicely because they kind of look similar. This is just my recommendation of what should be done, whether we get the job or not. I don't want, whoever was going to go through this is going through this process in this meeting that you guys are having. Okay, even if it was going to be repaired, And it's not something I feel comfortable with repairing because I don't think it's going to last. There's already problems of hydraulic pressure there pushing the hillside. So it needs proper drainage.
Hey, JR, do you have any like photographs of similar projects that you've done using a similar material to what you're proposing?
We do retaining walls, we do patios, we do all sorts of stuff with manufactured block, which has a way of anchoring itself. All these blocks are going to be pinned to each other and then pinned to the ground.
So what I'm looking
So
for
that's
is like
going to hold it all together.
what I'm looking for is like a proper visualization of what this will look like when it's completed.
Yeah, I gave Rick a brochure. You know, it tells you
Yeah,
what the
that
block
is
looks like in there. It shows the walls that are, shows
page
pictures of the
15
whole
is
wall.
would be the finished wall.
Excuse me?
Page 15 that
So
Right.
so what
I sent is
I
in
think
the.
what I think is like very apparent is that visually looks incredibly different from what is currently there.
Yeah, I'm not
color.
interested in doing something that's there or trying to reuse that material.
Yeah.
It's garbage. It's absolute garbage. There's no historic value to the material that's used in that wall at all.
Gotcha.
So in their professional brochure, they had no, in that color, they had no wall. It on page 15 is the finished wall. Page 14 would be the color.
I understand. I'm seeing that.
The 15 is the finished project.
Andrea is looking to get recognized, Sue.
So I think we're all past the not reusing the existing material portion, but there are other materials that are new that have a similar look to the rest of the wall that's occurring as opposed to the block that you currently have selected. I think Peter and I share a similar issue with that, in that I don't think there's anything wrong with the block you have picked, but it doesn't really work cohesively with the other two walls that are there, especially when it comes to, if it winds up being that you have to structurally step it in, again, we can revisit that. But I think as far as the aesthetic goes, this stone that's currently picked does not mesh well with the others that are adjacent to it.
Okay,
So
Rick,
again, not focusing on trying to repair the wall or reuse those stones if they are deteriorated beyond repair, but to find other stones that look similar to what is there now.
Okay, so if I might add,
Understood. So the contractor picked the stone. What do you got, JR?
Whatever's in that
so
book,
JR, you picked the stone.
Excuse me?
You picked the stone.
What?
So what are your thoughts?
I picked the block that was in there as antique block because I think it matched it was the closest to the wall on either side. Okay.
So the hickory that's also pictured on page 15 is similar to the current wall as well.
Right.
You can kind of see half of it.
If they can look at that and prove that color or whatever it may be, what you're seeing in the book and what you see as an actual block, that I gave you, you got to make sure they're going to look the same. They vary in color, they vary a little bit in shape.
Hey, does any other member of the board have any additional questions for JR?
To my recollection, the wall on either side there is kind of like a bluestone material, which is why I picked out the antique gray. If we feel there's something that's closer to that bluestone type material, we can definitely go with that. That's not an issue.
Okay. Procedurally, Mr. and Mrs. Van Scoy, we have three choices. Under the to stay within the timeframes that are put on us by the code and the State Environmental Quality Review Act. We can approve as submitted, we can deny as submitted, or you can withdraw without prejudice to double check to see if there's something else that you'd like to present to us. I'm wondering if the third option is attractive to you before I canvass the board as to which of the other two they might want to do. Those are, the law constrains us to those three options here tonight. I want to give you every chance to give us the wall you want the way you want it, and then we have to render a decision. So what would you have us do?
I had the contractor pick the stone that he thought was the best stone. So I had no say. He said, this is what I got. And I said, I think it'll look good.
Would you like the chance to investigate an additional option before we vote?
So I thought that it would blend well and that it would look good. That's why I submitted all the paperwork. So I am not against, I want it to look as nice as everything else. So I am pro-historic. I definitely love our community.
Oh,
so if you don't feel that way, you would have to vote the way you feel that you should vote.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So folks, I'm going to make a motion denying. I'm sensing that is the leaning of the board here tonight. I will then ask for a second, and then we can vote, and we will take it from there. I am moving that the commissioners present find as fact that the proposed demolition of a portion of a historic stone wall and its replacement with a manufactured stone wall at 139 Broadway in the Rondout Historic District by the applicants and owners Richard and Rebecca Van Scoik, if done according to the plans reviewed at this meeting and according to the procedures stipulated in section 405-64 of the City of Kingston's Administrative Code, is incompatible with the historic character of the building and the district for the following reasons. That the proposed historic wall demolition and replacement is to take place on the western side of Broadway between Rogers and West Pierpont Streets, one lot down from the corner of Broadway and Rogers to the portion of an existing stone wall abutting 139 Broadway, an otherwise vacant lot, and continuing to run along Broadway, bordering the neighbors' properties to the left and right, appearing on the mid to late 1880s Kingston, New York panoramic bird's eye view by L.R. Burley, most likely having been erected prior to 1851 to border one or both of the two large buildings that appear on the 1851 ring-walled map of Rondout at 6 Rogers Street and at the lot in question. That the proposed work will be the demolition and removal of a historic wall, installation of a drainage system, and installation of new wall using a manufactured stone product to be 40 feet by 7 feet by 2 feet. That this work will cause a material change to the external appearance of the property. That the new wall will detract from the character of the historic district and the continuity of the historic stone wall, and that any changes or additions to the plans or work specifically described and outlined in the submitted application would be subject to further review by our commission prior to the work being carried out. That this commission's approval or denial does not obviate the need for a building permit from the City of Kingston's Building Safety Division or any other required approvals from relevant coordinating agencies. Based on the preceding findings of fact, I propose that on the 4th day of June 2020, this commission deny a preservation notice of action to the above referenced applicant for the work as described herein, and in its application to the commission. Do I have a second for that motion? Thank you, Hayes. All right, I will call the roll on this motion as I've stated. Peter DeMuth,
Aye.
Hayes Clement,
Aye.
Evan McAvoy,
Aye.
Andrea Putz.
Aye.
I too vote in the affirmative. Mr. Van Scoik, I'm sorry that we don't feel that we can design as submitted. You've got a sense of what we're looking for, and I'd ask that you discuss it with your contractor, or maybe Ms. Putz's suggestion of an engineer, or perhaps a different sort of stonemason might have a slightly different way to deal with this. I personally would ask that you consider the idea of facing to more closely match what's happening on either end.
May I also have the contractor here a
We would ask that you please do so.
recommendation?
That would be
recommend
wise.
there was good.
Yeah.
Can
I'll
I
definitely
also have
send
a
you.
recommendation?
I'll
Yes,
send you.
any witness or other have a peer, please let them know how to do this, and we're happy to have them here because some of this does get technical. All right, so the motion has carried. Suzanne, this means I guess you'll send a note to Mr. Van Scoik, and
Yes.
we're sorry that we weren't able to give you our full support here tonight. We hope to be able to get behind a proposal in future. Thank you so much for your efforts and for bringing your contractor into the discussion. If either of them have questions for any of us, the best way to get hold of us is probably through you, Sue. Am I right?
Julie.
Oh, okay. Any other questions from you, Mr. Van Scoik, or from you, JR, that I can answer?
No, I'm pretty clear with what's going on.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you
So
kindly.
JR, you understand? Do you understand what they want? Because I do not.
I mean, we presented a plan that was supposed to be effective, and the character of what's there is supposed to be closest we can get. I mean, it doesn't sound like to me that anybody is going out to the site and seeing the material that's on that wall. It's nothing. It's nothing historic. It's nothing. It's not material that's all the same as on either end of the wall. Either end of the wall has a uniform build to it. Your wall has been fabricated out of whatever was on hand.
My guess might be that could be caused from earlier deterioration that was patched together.
It's not patched. It's original. It's original.
Oh, great. Oh, all right. I'll trust you on your specialty, and I'll stop guessing. So thank you kindly, and
Okay.
we hope to hear from either or both of you soon.
Okay.
And
Perfect.
are there any other items of business to come before the board? I think we've gone through the, I'd like to let the board know that I was approached by the property manager at Old Dutch Church. They expect to be coming to us with a proposal to site a generator behind Old Dutch. It will be in the graveyard. There's no way, I mean, since it's surrounded by the graveyard, they are going they explained to me that there's no way for them to get it 6 feet away and fit the electric codes without utilizing some part of the graveyard. They haven't decided exactly what to do. I want to let you know, Sue and Julie, that sometime in the next month or two, we are likely to get an application from Old Dutch on that. Has anyone else had any contacts from members of the public? Andrea?
The building that Lake Kennard is in is going to be submitting next month on their revision of colors. since it's coming from my office, I thought it might be pertinent to put that before everybody.
All right, so you'll probably have to recuse, and we look forward to receiving it. Thank you kindly. Anyone
Mark?
else?
Mark, we
Yes.
still have on the agenda 265 Fair,
Oh, I'm sorry.
but I believe John Schultes has left. Julie?
Your lips are moving, Julie, but we're not hearing you.
Daniel? Daniel Wilson, are you here for the firehouse?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
so he is here. And
And
Bill
also,
Knowles.
Bill is here too from the firehouse.
All right. So this is the Firemen's Museum?
It is. Bill, do you want to start off or do you want me to? Yeah.
I'm sorry, Billy, your lips are moving, but I'm not hearing you.
Okay.
All right. Well, maybe I'll take a hold of it.
Let me just let Billy know again. I'm sorry, we're not hearing you. You may need to sign back out and come back in. I'm not sure what the issue is.
I'm muting. If you're on the commission and you're not speaking, would you please mute? I've muted pretty much everybody. Julie, I'll mute you too. Okay. That should maybe help. See if that helps. Bill? Okay.
Perhaps he's going to try to log back in. So let me just fill in until Bill can join. I'm Dan Wilson from Lacey Taylor Riley Wilson Architecture and Preservation. We just thought we wanted to come before the board just to kind of show you some ideas that we have for replacing the apparatus bay doors at the Kingston Volunteer Firemen's Museum. This is actually a small part of a larger project that both the museum and the city is planning on undertaking over multiple phases. We actually decided to pull this out as a separate thing only because of certain financial reasons that they might be able to do this before we do the first phase, which is replacing the roof and restoring and repairing the brick and some of the wood framing in the roof. So what we did, and these were only very preliminary just to get some real rough cost estimates. But fortunately for us, since it is the Volunteer Firemen's Museum, they have a pretty good archive of the history of the building. So, and I'm not sure what John sent to you. And I don't know if it's even possible for me to share my screen. But we have two schemes that we're currently wrestling with on potential historic replica doors. The first scheme I'd like to talk about is I think it was on drawing A552, 552, because like I said, this is taken out of a larger packet. And what it is when you deal with historic preservation and interpretation of historic buildings, it's always tricky to determine the period of significance. So the difference between this and the other design is this one shows that at some point in the history, and we haven't nailed it down quite, the door on the right-hand side was modified. The door on the left-hand side that says Wiltwick is the original door. If you go to the other drawing, which was 553, that is what the firehouse originally looked like. They both had similar doors. So what we believe is the reason why they modified the right-hand door at some point was because they had to get rid of the transom due to a height issue with probably a new piece of equipment. So what we're planning on doing, and we still haven't worked out the details on this, is using the historic photographs that we have, is come up with some wood replica door types, whether it be wood, painted wood. And we're not sure, we currently can do these doors as overhead doors that fold up, and they just have that look to them, or we might still do the swinging type of doors that they originally were. The swinging doors, unfortunately though, they originally swung in. For us to do it, they have to swing out only because of the current apparatuses that are in the firehouse. You never be able to swing them in, they hit the fire truck. So I see Bill is back. Bill, can you? Still nothing. Okay. So again, like I said, this is a very temporary, I mean, very preliminary stage. The city, because this is a City of Kingston project, they wanted us to go before you and just show you what we got and what we're thinking about.
This is Sue Cahill. Dan, is there a preference to either option A or option B?
No, because we're currently working on trying to determine what we call the period of significance. For us, we really don't have an option at this point. One thing I can tell you, option B is more expensive because we'd have to redo the opening, because you can see that actually a lintel in there that they put in, put the transom back on that other one. It's hard to see. There's a little difference between the two doors, the two door openings, height-wise.
I'm sorry, why is option B more expensive? I'm that part.
It's hard to see, but the existing opening has this stone lintel that goes across that's lower than the original transom. When they removed the transom, they redid the opening. For us to go back that transom, we'll have to take out that lintel, stone lintel, and reframe that area.
Got
But I mean, it's not really a cost issue. I'm just saying that's just it's just more difficult, the other issue, the other design.
Right.
And the too bad Bill is not on, because I think it's important for him for us to understand, with him, what the museum prefers too.
I like the symmetry of option B just because it's sort of the same on both sides.
We do too, and that's why I said sometimes it's tricky, because sometimes when you're telling the story of the building and its evolution, sometimes going back to the original is not the best approach. Sometimes you have to make these concessions of why you have two different doors.
Right.
I think Andrea would like to speak. So.
First off, Billy, if you have a preference for number one, put up a finger, number one. If you have a preference for number two, put up two for option B. And actually,
Dan, let me see which one's which. 'Cause I don't have
sound.
I can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me now. Okay.
Yes.
All right. For the museum, our preference, because the drawing with the that had the Wiltwick that's on the left-hand side, and then the different door on the right-hand side, they're essentially two different time representations there in the history. That right-hand door, I believe, and we haven't had any confirmation on this, was really changed in the 1800s to accept the steam pumpers. Okay, if you've ever seen a pumper that with being pulled by a bunch of horses that was very large, the City of Kingston had several of them. I've heard the number up to 20 at one point. That and they were probably at least 10 feet high. And that was what, you had to fit that in there. And if anybody was here in late 60s, early 70s, when Kingston bought a Seagrave ladder truck and tried to put it in there and discovered that it didn't fit, they understand those issues. So, okay.
Andrea speaking. I think my preference actually is option A, to be completely honest. I mean, I usually I'm totally for symmetry. Normally I would be for option B, but I think, in all honesty, Billy, from what your description is, I think that says a lot about what's happening with this building. So my preference is option A. I very much like that.
Actually, it was one of the architects that Dan used to work for years ago, came in and did a survey in the early 90s. And he said that the Wiltwood Fire Station was to quote him, was an excellent example of the evolution of firefighting from the mid 1800s to the mid 1900s. So, that's having the two different doors allows us to show that evolution.
That's a fair point. I actually see that too.
Am I following you that from a presentation of the history, you'll be able to use door A more effectively than door B, rather than saying, try to imagine. You can point out and say, well, this is how it had to evolve.
Yeah, not to sound too much of like a museum geek, but when we do these types of historic sites, these are the things that we really like because they really help to, as an interpretive thing, to explain to people, that why this has changed. Because they'll always say, they're like, well, this is stupid. You got two different doors. I'm like, no, it's not. The reason is because of, and you tell the whole history, or you have a little plaque on it. It's those types of things that really make a difference in that, in how you tell the story of the building.
You've changed my opinion on it. I totally get your point.
And I would suggest that the next time you're uptown and wandering around, go look at the building, and you will see, you can see the history right there, from the bell tower to the architecture of the building, down to the fact that we've now got overhead doors with tracks that don't work. So, this is something that we're going to need to approach reasonably quickly.
It's very exciting.
What else can we give you any guidance on? What would be useful?
Tell you the truth, I'm not sure what, Dan, do you have something?
Yeah, like I said, this is just a preliminary review for you guys. And we always like, when we do these projects, to get things to you earlier as opposed to later, so that we don't go down a road that is just not going to fly for you guys. So, what we're planning on doing, just to let you know, both Bill and the city is working on some grants to help offset some of the costs of this. And depending on how that goes, we are looking to finalize and actually do construction documents and go out to bid. We have to go out to bid, public job, and do this. Prior to that, once we have the design finalized, we will be submitting a final approval to the board, to the commission. Other than that, if you have any other recommendations, saying, obviously you'll get the full set of drawings. We'll even have suggested color selections and stuff. So if there's anything else that you would like to see at this point, that'd be
Are you addressing, I know there was a water infiltration issue. There were some structural fears about this building going back 10, 12 years. have those been repaired and I just didn't know, or is that part of what's going on here as well?
Yes and no. Some of it has been repaired as like almost like a Band-Aid. The city's carpenters have gone in and it was a roof issue too, and stabilized the roof. As part not of this is kind of we did this as a pull-out project because of certain financial reasons. We are doing what we call phase one, which includes repairs to the roof, as in the roof structure, and fixing those areas that the city, and they did a good job. It's just that it's a temporary fix. We do have to replace the standing seam metal roof with a new standing seam metal roof that's well beyond its life, and also has some hazardous material issues. And then we are repairing the, trying to remember which gable. The gable, I don't remember the direction. Not the gable that faces the bank, the other gable end. All that masonry at the gable end has to be reset.
The southeast end of it. So,
and that, like I said, is phase one. We are currently developing future phases. But that gets a little bit more onto the issues of how the museum functions, providing ADA accessibility, and all. The immediate thing was to stop the water infiltration, stop the structural stuff. So we are currently working on that too.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any questions for either Dan or Billy? Well, thank you for coming to us, and this is exciting. I personally am definitely in favor of asymmetry, and I look forward to receiving the full application. Sounds like an exciting project. And is there anything you need for us specifically on a bid or a grant application kind of level?
I don't know if that's been determined yet, Bill, has it?
I'm sorry?
Do you need any letter or sign off for any of the grants you're pursuing at this point?
I need to have a chat with the community foundation. They are, the museum received a grant from an anonymous donor that is being taken care of by the community foundation. And we need, Dan came in with a preliminary number of what we're going to need. That was a lot more than that grant. And we need to go back and say, okay, can you give us more? So.
Luck with that. If you need our help with that, you please do let us know.
We certainly will. I'm sure that at some point in time, we will need letters of recommendation, and I appreciate that.
Right. Anything else from any of the board members that you'd like to bring to the public at this stage of the game?
I think Dan's done a very good job of that. I mean, the only additional part of it, I don't know how familiar you folks are with the DRI work that was done last year, the year before and last year. But the project plan is what grew out of that. So there are, like Dan said, there's the ADA issues. There will be the utility issues, when heating and cooling. There will be windows. That will be the phase forward, Dan?
I don't remember, because I thought, well, the problem with the windows is that's a sticky subject, because we try to do the exterior envelope as much as we can first.
Yeah.
But that is a big dollar item, restoring those windows. So I think we had to push it back. So, but if we can, if money comes out somewhere, we try to push that more up front. So yeah.
The Common Council voted to bond the initial phases of this, and that didn't include these doors. We just brought this up to the mayor because we have this grant that If we don't use it, we lose it. And I said, can we apply it toward the doors? And Mayor Noble said, yes, we can. And that's why we're here. So
Technically, we could just replace the doors in kind for the amount the grant is, because they don't work and they actually don't have the life safety devices that overhead doors are supposed to have now with the electric eye, and they can't retrofit it. It's so old. But what we said is, instead of wasting that money on just replacing the doors in kind, we really should try to just deal with this, get the doors fixed, but put what the museum wants in. It's gonna cost almost double the amount, but it's important to, do this now because of that reason.
and I agree. The gray overhead doors are not exactly in keeping with the history of the building. They're more like something that happened post World War II. So.
All right, thank you for bringing it to us. Best of luck with all your grant applications, and may things go smoothly. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mark,
Yes.
you have one more item on your agenda.
This is what I get when I don't have dinner before coming to the meeting.
The Common Council
This is the open space plan review. Am I following you?
Yes, you are. That is correct.
All right. So for members of the board and whoever's left of the public, Common Council is asking for input from us on the open space plan. Does anyone have questions about our interplay with that I think Sue is probably the best person to address?
Mark, it's Kevin. I was involved in preparing the full environmental assessment form as part of the Conservation Advisory Council with Julie Noble and Emily Hauser. So,
excellent.
If you're going to vote on this, I should probably be recused as a member of that other board.
All right. Sue, do you think they're looking for us or just a sense of the meeting?
So, what the council is looking to do, as Kevin just said, the council has declared themselves lead agency under the seeker review for the adoption of the final open space plan as has been drafted by the CAC. So they did complete part 1, 2, and 3 of the full environmental assessment form, and that was circulated to all the commission members for your review and consideration to give them feedback if you saw any. I had gone through it. I don't have any issues with it on behalf of any of the agencies or commissions and boards that we're dealing with. The open space plan, I also gave you a link to that so that you could read through it and see how it does address certain aspects of the city that might might be of influence to you. It addresses the city parks, for example, like Academy Green, which is a historic park. It speaks to those kinds of features. From a historic perspective, I think that's what you're really looking at.
Right,
Speaking to streetscapes and things of that nature. Dan?
Yeah, I just wanted to back up for a second. Kevin, could you just explain why you believe that you need to recuse yourself just because you are a member of the commission? I don't believe you have a conflict, and I believe that your participation in the discussion is not only contemplated by you being on both boards, but it's extremely valuable to the process.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you. I just felt that since I was the principal drafter of the environmental assessment form, and I received comments from both Julie and Emily.
Well, do you believe that your role on this board in any way conflicts with your role on that board, or are the interests pretty much aligned?
I think they're aligned, but
I don't see any reason why you have to recuse yourself, Kevin.
Okay, you tell me. I'm Yeah, I'm fine, if you want, but yeah, it's just, it's almost like I'm making comments to myself. Which is,
Well, no, you're
yeah, that's why
explaining a process to the board that you participated in.
Yeah.
And as such, you have, more relevant information for them than any of the rest of us. So you
Okay.
should participate.
Okay.
Thank you. So is Common Council looking for a formal seeker letter from us saying that we support their declaration as lead agency here? Is that what's, I
No.
didn't get that.
No, they've already, the Common Council has already declared themselves and is acting as lead agency. That step has already been accomplished. What they're looking for now is any feedback on the information that they have provided, because they need to render a determination of environmental significance.
All right.
Just for clarification, Sue, I believe that the timeline that you and I discussed would technically give this board this meeting and next meeting to make their comments, because they do have technically 45 days, correct?
Correct.
Okay, but the preference of the council and the preference of the administration would be that this would be addressed at this meeting, so it doesn't hold up the council from doing their primary work as the lead agency at their next meeting. So you can either render an opinion letter. You can say in a letter that you've received the plans and that you are declining to comment, deferring to the council, or you can punt it to next week, which would result in the council not being able to make their determination until the August meeting.
All right, so you're, when you said next week, you meant next month, am I right?
Correct.
Okay, well, folks, what is our pleasure on this one? I'm not seeing a direct conflict in what I was able to read. The section that dealt with the parks did not contradict what we have to do, as far as I could tell. Kevin may have a lot more detail here than I'm trying to recall. Anyone else have an opinion on that? Hayes, any thoughts? Peter,
Nope.
Andrea?
What I read, I'm fine. I don't think it merits negative comment or challenge.
Peter, any thoughts?
I'm in agreement on that.
Andrea, your feeling here?
Same. I'm generally speaking in agreement.
Okay, and Kevin, as the one who was most deeply involved among us, did you see potential conflicts that you think we ought to highlight to Common Council?
I didn't see any, no. What I included in there was pretty much every plan that we could find under plans to make sure that everything was considered. And no, I didn't see an inconsistency or conflict, no.
All right, then my bent on this would be toward letting them know that we have no comment, that we are in general support of what we've seen. Dan, what would you say? A letter?
I believe that much like you did either last month or the month before with the affordable housing, I believe you wrote a letter that said you're acknowledging receipt, that you have no objections to the documents that you received, and that it's your understanding that they in no way impact your jurisdiction with regard to historic districts and historic properties. I believe that you wrote the same letter a month ago with regard to the affordable housing, and you can just doctor it up to indicate the same.
Sue, are you remembering that in detail?
I wrote the original letter. Yeah, and I think what I would mention, if the commission would concur that you have no objection or that you believe that a negative determination of environmental significance is appropriate in this instance, I think that should be added into the letter as well.
I would agree.
I would
with
agree.
that. All right.
But generally,
Then-
on a plan like this, Mark, generally on a plan like this, we do, it's a type 1, but it doesn't generally have a lot of environmental significance. It would be, negative impact. Yeah, as a planning tool, right?
Right.
Yeah, mostly open space is pretty happy from an environmental point of view. All right. Then I would move that we authorize Sue to write a letter to the Common Council on the board's behalf, stating that we have received received their notice, that we, all right, would support a negative finding of a finding of no negative environmental impact, and that we do not see a conflict with our purview as Historic Landmark Preservation Commission with the plan as stated. I think that covers everything. Is there an additional point you think we ought to make, Sue?
No, I think you got it.
I would ask, do you need me to sign that for the board, Sue? Or would you be
I can
comfortable?
sign it on your behalf.
I think that would be quicker, and it sounds like speed may be important. So then I would also move that we authorize Sue to sign it on the board's behalf. Do I have a second? Thank you, Hayes, for the second. All those in favor, I'll call the roll. Peter DeMuth.
Aye.
Hayes Clement.
Aye.
Kevin McAvoy.
Aye.
Andrea Putz.
Aye.
I also vote aye.
Okay.
Right. May I now entertain a motion to adjourn?
Yes, you may.
Andrea wins on that one. I'll give Hayes a second. All those in favor? By acclamation, we stand adjourned, but I am going to call the roll anyhow. Andrea.
Aye.
Kevin.
Sound broke up.
I will allow you to indicate with a thumbs up or thumbs down your vote on this, since we're having verbal trouble with you, Kevin. Aye or nay? We have an aye.
Oh, okay.
I hereby enter the aye into our record.
Aye.
Peter DeMuth.
Aye.
Yeah, the sound's up.
Hayes Clement.
An enthusiastic aye.
And the same from me. Thank you, everyone, for this evening, and we will see you again soon at the same interesting location where we will wrestle with all kinds of technical difficulties. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good night.
Good night.